Welcome to the second coming. We are so happy for your support and your love that you've been showing us. I'm Jason Keaton, your host of the Second Coming podcast, and I'm in the studio here today with Brother T. Brother T, welcome. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Oh, I'm glad to be here. And thank you for being here, Jason.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
How you been? How you been this week?
Doing good, man. Doing good. There's just a lot of things going on, and I don't know. I'm just blissed out most of the time, to be honest with you. I remember I was playing volleyball with some folks recently, and there was a young woman there that was, we were talking and we were playing, competitive sports, and she said, "Well, I hope you don't get mad at me if I ABCD," or whatever she was talking about her performance. I'm like, "You'll probably never see me get mad at you." I don't get mad at any. Isn't that nice to live your life without being upset?
Absolutely.
We were talking, I think it was last week, we were talking about suffering, right? And struggle. And, imagine going through your life and you're just allowing and accepting things, and nothing really trips your wire. You know what I'm saying? You're just happy and you're feeling blissed out. And I'm being quite honest. I really see no reason to be upset. Sometimes I do feel some disappointment at our brothers and sisters that are out there toiling away in the world, advancing ideas that are unloving, because I know their true innocence. I know who they are in truth in their relationship with God, but they have free will, and so they're allowed to live the way they want to, and they will find their way home in their own time. We're all on our own individual journeys, and we are all crafting those journeys. And so it is a high calling, and it's a high step up the ladder of ascension to ultimately, Jason, become capable of allowing the world to be as the world is, and then know that you are connected with Spirit, know who you are, what you are, and how you serve. And in that knowing, life is really wonderful. It really is.
Absolutely. And what I hear you saying is all events are neutral, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the question, because you tied it into last week when we were talking about finding joy, and you were talking about how you don't really get upset anymore. The reason why we have this experience where we can be more calm is all events are neutral. And the question, that is the question. Help us understand how we can go through this human life and even possibly believe that all events are neutral. And talk to me a little bit about that, Brother T. All events are neutral.
Oh, I'd be glad to. That's one of my favorite talking points when I was teaching A Course in Miracles with students in live situations, classroom situations. That one is one that I hammer home continuously. This is one of the first admonitions from Jesus in A Course in Miracles. He's the author of A Course in Miracles. It was scribed by Helen Schachtman back in the 1960s and published eventually around the mid-70s. But one of the most important tenets of that teaching is that all events are neutral. So it's kind of to me, it's almost like a touchstone in my life, right? It's like, you pick up a rock or somebody gives you something and you stick it in your pocket, and every time you reach in your pocket, you touch that. And it reminds you why it's there and who gave it to you and what its purpose was. And even the ring on our finger when we're married, right? That's a touchstone. That is a symbol of a commitment to be in a relationship in a certain way. In other words, it's a touchstone, if you'll allow me to use that phrase. And all events are neutral is a touchstone for me. Because if all events are neutral, then what am I doing other than painting on top of any event all the meaning that it has? You see, that's what the ego does. It judges and then judges its judgments, and then judges the judgment of its judgments, because it's a judgment machine. And I love to use the phrase, it's artificial intelligence. We talk about artificial intelligence all the time out there, but the ego is artificial intelligence. It's not the real you. What is the real you? We've been talking about it a lot. It's you are your soul. You are the soul. The soul is what's incarnating, not the ego, right? The personality disappears, literally. When you transition from the body and go back to the other side of the veil, and just let the body return to dust, the personality that we've constructed from the egoic operating system just collapses. It's just no longer there. Just like the dreaming self. The dreams you had last night, do you remember them today? Do you remember them even now? Probably not. The whole construct just collapsed. And the same thing is true about the ego and the personality self. The personality self is not you, and that's not the self that's incarnating. Who's coming into form, the self that's real, is what God has created, and you are as God created you to be, which is spirit, soul, and an extension of God, more of God. And so as we begin to know ourselves, discover ourselves, and become to be ourselves in form, that self is already knowing all of these principles and tenets that Jesus is sharing with us. And so if we can begin to recondition, and I like to use the term unlearn the conditioning of the world, and relearn the truth through spiritual principle, then more and more easily the soul, as it's maturing from your egoic experience and form, can begin to influence how you respond and react. You become more soul-like because you have a corrected perception, right? So if you can begin to look at all the events that are going on in the world and say, all events are neutral. In reality, I want to add that little caveat there. In reality, all these events are neutral because this is an illusory construct called the world. The earth is real, and there were lots of misperceptions about the Course in Miracles. It was first taught that all of this is an illusion and that you're making everybody else up and you're making the world up and blah, 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 blah. And that was a misperception of the teaching. Jesus has corrected that sense. And some Course students out there, or Course teachers out there, still don't know that, right? It's still waking up to that, right? But the truth is that it's just the illusionary construct of our belief system about what we are and what the world is. That's the illusion. The earth itself is an entity of love. The earth itself is a being of life. It is alive. And it's hard for the ego to imagine that. We look at inanimate objects as nothing, and we treat our fellow creatures here horribly because we don't realize that they are a part of us. They're not, they're not less than us at all. There is nothing less than us at all, period. And everything that even that's inanimate was still created by God. Everything is either alive or it was alive and was created by God. It's all in the mind of God. So when we begin to see that God is benevolent and God is love, and that all events that are happening are just temporary constructs of a false idea about what the world is and who we are, because we believe ourselves to be this egoic self that we call our personality. These are kind of difficult to grasp at first, Jason, to be honest with you, but this touchstone, all events are neutral, is a beautiful thing to stick in your pocket or put it on a notepad and stick it on your refrigerator, right? Because the more that you accept that principle as your truth, the more peace and joy you're going to find in your daily experience of life. When a family member does something and you can feel the resistance, you feel how you're getting triggered, you touch that touchstone and you're like, oh, wait a minute. That's just an event. This is just an event. What's not an event? This broadcast, this podcast is an event, right? And the way it's formatted and whether it's done perfectly or not perfectly by somebody else's judgment, this and that and the other, it doesn't matter. They're just giving it meaning.
Right.
But I've shared the story before, and I'll give it this last little comment. But I think it might have been in an email that I wrote some time ago. But I shared the story about a restaurant, and there's a group of people, about 6 people, sitting at a restaurant, and the waitress spills water. It's the same event, but everybody at the table sees it differently. One person blesses the waiter and gives them a bigger tip, and another person says, well, they don't deserve a tip at all. They're having, and don't they know who I am? The question is, don't you know who you are? Right? Because we are all allowing our ego to give everything all the meaning that it has. And when we get outside of that, in other words, tell the ego, get thee behind me. I'm not going to listen to that. And then we go to our heart space, just like we did when we started this session, and we say, hey, take a good deep breath. Are you there? And connect with spirit and ask the question, what is the truth? What is the truth? And then the hard part is to be quiet and listen. That's really the hard part, but it's absolutely necessary to be willing to be quiet and listen and let spirit help you begin to see what everything means. Not from the ego's perspective, but from the perspective of love. It's called the vision of Christ.
Absolutely. Quieting that monkey brain, the monkey mind it can be difficult. And remembering that all events are neutral helps with that, especially when we start making up stories and then believing these stories that we make up in our mind to be true. That's all monkey chatter. Is there a tool that you could give us? I know we can say all events are neutral, but is there a specific tool when we go throughout our day and we get into a fender bender, or the boss at work, criticizes something that we worked hard on? Is there a tool that I can take with me today to help me remember all events are neutral?
Absolutely, and it's one that I go to. I have my little go-to touchstones, if you will. I'll use the analogy, and I might have even shared it here on our podcast before. But when you're going down the road on the interstate at 80 miles an hour, no, wait a minute, speed limit's 70. When you're going down the interstate at 70 miles an hour, and there's an accident ahead, do you speed up or do you slow down? Now you're going to say, well, I slow down, of course, right? Yeah. What do? You tap the brake. You start slowing down. But the ego actually does the opposite. When the ego encounters anything unexpectedly or an event that it can't figure out what's going on, or it judges very rapidly, in 1/10,000th of a second, the ego will say something is good or bad based on your history, based on the past. So tap the brake. How do we do that with the ego? We stop and pause for 1 second, and we catch our breath. We think about our breath. We take a good deep breath. Oh, notice your breath. Have you heard that statement before? Notice your breath. If you will notice your breathing, it does some magical things. And I would rather say miracle-like things, because it brings you to the present moment. It brings you to the center. It brings you into the now. So take a good deep breath. That's tapping the brake. As soon as I've done that, I have just interrupted the egoic pattern of judgment, and speeding up its process of fear and blame and creating false constructs about what's really happening. All events are neutral. So if I encounter something, before I can get to being willing to accept that, I can remember to tap the brake. Wait a minute. Take a good deep breath. Come to the center. Now I'm present to this very moment. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about the past. As I'm talking to you right now, I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm being present in this moment. I'm going to connect with spirit. Are you there? I'm so glad you're there. I'm so blessed that you're there. How can I see this situation? What is the truth? I'm going to allow. I can remember to allow. Wait a minute, all events are neutral. I can forgive this subject. I can forgive this event. Forgiveness is moving back before we gave judgment. Let me go back before I started giving judgment, before I started letting my ego run away with me and defining what's going on. I don't know what's going on. If there's 10 people here, all 10 people have a different opinion about what's going on. So I'm going to take a good deep breath. Doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It matters what you are doing for yourself. Because falling back in love with yourself is the way we return to sanity.
I love that. That's beautiful, Brother T. Beautiful, Brother T. I love how you tied it into some of your past teachings about being present and using, our presence as a tool to help us, and to using all events are neutral, and how you say that, it's our judgment that we put upon something that gives it value, when that's just a story we make up in our head. And I love the words that God is flowing through you with. And thank you so much for blessing us here today.
Oh, my giving and receiving are one. I am blessed by your presence, Jason, and the presence of our friends and audience and family and mighty companions here at True Thought Spiritual Community. So giving and receiving are one. I am truly blessed by being here with you, and I am learning with you. The teacher is the learner, and I am learning right along with everyone here who's hearing our words and tuning into our podcast. Thank God for all of you. You are all a blessing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brother T, True Thought, the second coming, your energy as our viewers. Thank you. Look at how our community is growing. Look at the conversations we're having now. This is all shared energy, and it couldn't happen without you. Brother T, thank you so much. Remind us all again, if they want more information, if they're craving this, if they're seeing this for the first time, or maybe they're seeing this for the 10th time, how can our viewers get in touch with you personally, or get more information about True Thought?
Well, you can actually reach out to me at True Thought. You can just send an email to info at truethought.org, O-R-G. And True Thought is our spiritual community. You can also find us on our Substack platform. That's where most of our content is at. The archives for all of our emails, the messages we're sending out, the podcast, everything is neatly and available there. Most all of that content is absolutely free. If you want to comment to me or communicate with me directly, we put that behind a little paywall. It's like $7 a month. It's hardly anything, but that helps support our community and pay for the cost of doing our work, helps to provide with some support. And there you can actually add comments to any of the emails. You can add comments to the podcast. Most of the podcasts, we're leaving that open so you can comment on these podcasts. And also you can find us on our YouTube page, and that is ttsc.tv. That's True Thought Spiritual Community, ttsc.tv. And that'll take you to our YouTube page. And we are beginning now to add some shorts and some more content and some long form content. Most of our long form content is going to be on our Substack page. You can go there at True Mind, TRUE, Mind, MIND space, SPACE, truemind.space. And that's just an easy way to get into the inner circle. But those are the three ways to get there. If you'd like to, ttsc.tv, there's a YouTube page, truethought.org, info at truethought.org if you want to email me directly, or just join the conversation at truemind.space, truemind.space.
Well, thank you, Brother T. Thank you for your enlightening words, and thank all of you again. It wouldn't happen without all of us. Thank you for sharing this beautiful energy we've shared here today, and I will see you next week.
Yes, we will. Namaste.